This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/Yarazaid. When I was little, the first music genre I connected to was punk rock. I had an embarrassing Tumblr page that the sentimental part of me kinda still wishes was up, just so I could look back at my adolescent mentality. I reblogged pictures of Riot Girls, Patti Smith with her infamous Fuck the Clock shirt. My feelings on Patti Smith changed after I found out this song exists. There's a really old blurry picture floating around of me somewhere at age 12 wearing a Ramones-style haircut. When you get into punk rock, you learn of the classic bands like The Clash, Sex Pistols, Stooges, you know the ones. When I was first getting into it, it felt rare to see bands fronted by women, and even rarer to see black people in punk, and it left me under the common misconception that black people just didn't exist in that arena. But one day I realized there had to be black voices in punk. There was no possible way a genre that's existed for so many decades didn't have at least one black musician in it, a guitarist, a drummer, hell, maybe even a lead singer. My search led me to the woman who became a punk goddess for me and who I still deeply admire, the lead singer of London-based band X-Ray Specs, Polystyrene. The first time I saw her, I was in awe, and then from there I found more. D.H. Pellegro, drummer for the Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains out of Washington, D.C., Pure Hell, Death, Skin of Skunk Anansie, Tina Bell of Bam Bam. So I realized there were black people all over punk rock, even some who influenced punk without necessarily making traditional sounding punk music. To me, Grace Jones is and always will be a punk icon. Her music doesn't sound like Pure Hell or Black Flag, but she's a punk icon because punk is not just music, right? It's attitude, it's fashion, it's shattering barriers and expectations. This has always been a difficult conversation to have in punk rock circles, mainly because a lot of people I have tried to talk to about it would get really annoyed at the mere mention of black women in punk. The reason? They were beleaguered by so-called identity politics. I recall bringing up Tina Bell to someone I consider to be a friend, and they let out this heavy, exhausted sigh. They rolled their eyes and said, "I'm so sick of everyone pretending she was important to Seattle's music scene just because she was black." This sentiment is still common today. I can't tell you how many times I've come across posts online where someone requests recommendations for more like Latin punk bands or Asian punk bands, and someone else responds to the request with a reprimand. Why do you care so much? Are you only listening to these bands because of their race? Punk rock isn't about race or identity, which I personally think is weak sauce. Punk rock is a genre defined by its many anti-establishment themes. The genre is predicated on a lot of socio-political ideologies as well. One of the most famous punk rock songs is by the Dead Kennedys, and it's literally called Nazi Punks Fuck Off.
And this song is about the fucking rednecks and the fucking jocks who bring in their bullshit macho attitudes to these shows, try to wreck them by starting fights, spreading around their bullshit racist attitudes. If you really like the swastika so much, go join the Klan like your parents.
To claim that identity can't be tied to punk rock is ridiculous. Punk rock is all about identity, particularly as a means of thinking for oneself and standing apart from the mainstream. That's what it was built on. But when it comes to just talking about different voices in punk, suddenly identity and songs about anti-racism are a problem. In a genre built on rage, a genre about finding and harnessing your rage, the very action of telling someone to not make it about identity is contrarian to what the genre stands for. Black punk singers, for example, may sing about racism because they're angry about it, because their identity as a black person is what people see first. And in punk, rage is a gift. My identity as a black girl growing up intersected with my identity as a Muslim girl growing up. On both fronts, I was often told to make myself small. Don't be a loud black girl. Good Muslimas don't raise their voices. For me, the way I was treated existing in that intersection was cause for all kinds of rage. And it wasn't until We Are Lady Parts, a show created by the brilliant Nida Mansour, was first brought to streaming that I felt wholly understood. I've always wanted to talk more about We Are Lady Parts, but I never really knew how. Sometimes the things I'm closest to are the things I struggle to put a voice toward. Grandpa Marty is my favorite director and has been since I was 11 years old, but I would never make a video about his work because it's hard for me to put it into words. We Are Lady Parts is a show that is both joyful for me to watch, but also challenging because it puts a spotlight on things about me, about my life, and about my culture that honestly make me feel a bit naked. At several points in watching the series, I would gasp when certain plot points came up, or I would start bawling at the most inconsequential of scenes because I was there. That was me. That is me. We Are Lady Parts is the brainchild of Nida Manzoor, a writer, director, and badass who I've come to have a deep admiration for. Manzoor said part of her reason for wanting to make a show with this topic was because growing up, her favorite pastime was making music with her siblings, and also she wanted to be a brown Bob Dylan. The show follows an all-Muslim punk band as they simply navigate life and music. It's about being a Muslim in the art world, being a punk rocker, sisterhood, and the sometimes absurd oddities of modern womanhood. Our main character is Amina, played by Anjana Vasan, a geeky and somewhat meek woman earning her PhD in microbiology. Deep down, she's had aspirations of becoming a musician. She keeps her guitar talents and infatuation with role model Don McLean, who she has a shrine to, a secret because, as she is continually reminded, music is haram.
Music is haram.
Totes, innit? Have your little music obsession in private, but on here, keep it halal, yeah?
Outside of getting her PhD and making sure she lives up to the standards that have been set up for her, Amina's really concerned about getting married. She's 26 and all of her friends are either engaged or married, and she feels like she is far from where she's supposed to be. In the first scene of the pilot episode, she's actually having a formal meeting with a prospective husband and his family. It does not go well.
Hanabi disposition induces diarrhea and vomiting.
Syra, the lead singer of Lady Parts, eats, drinks, and sleeps everything to do with the band. Even when she's working at her job at a halal butcher shop, she's penning lyrics, thinking about the next moves, and chasing the high of creative expression. The band has a manifesto, thoughtfully written out, and I'm convinced that Syra knows it by heart.
We don't seek fame. We simply seek to speak our truth before we're mangled by other people's bullshit ideas of us. Simply seek to speak our truth before we're mangled by other people's bullshit ideas of us.
All the members are protective of the band, but Syra in particular is very protective of the band's integrity and what they represent. In season 1, she has to be convinced to put the band on social media because she's convinced that the lack of authenticity that characterizes the internet will infect the band.
How many times do we have to go through this? The internet is where creativity and truth go to die. If you put our music online, it'll be ripped off by insert corporation here to sell Pop-Tarts.
In season 2, she has to be convinced to let the band do a gig where they're able to get paid.
Maybe we should consider, I don't know, a thingy. Paid thingy.
For Syra, the band is pretty much her whole life, a characteristic she shares with Momtaz, who we'll get to in a moment. Syra, who has essentially been excommunicated from her family, who struggles to connect with people, has not just a family in the band, but a community, a sisterhood. Bisma, the basis of the group, is an earthy and kind soul. She often becomes the voice of reason. Between Syra's sometimes illogical insistences and Aisha's outbursts of anger, Bisma is calm, collected, and always willing to hear everyone out.
Sisters, huh? With mutual love and admiration, we lift each other up, yeah?
Feminism, innit?
When she's not with the band, she's raising her daughter Imani alongside her husband Wasim, and she makes these brilliant comics that I would kill to read called The Killing Period, which she describes as
Handmaid's Tale meets Rugrats.
Bisma, being a wife and a mother, sometimes struggles to find her identity, and much like Syra and Amina, doesn't want to be defined by how other people perceive her. She wants to find out who she is to herself, and that takes a lot of soul-searching, especially in season 2. Momtaz is the band manager, and Lady Parts is everything to her. Not only are the members her closest friends, but the music they make is something she greatly believes in, something she sees as her duty to get out to the world properly. In season 2, we learn she has a history of wrapping herself up in other people and other projects. She did it with a boy when she was 16, and she does it now with Lady Parts. So she's forced to reevaluate who she is and what she wants, not just for the band, but for her as an individual. Aisha is the hot-headed, whip-smart drummer. She's passionate, protective, and completely without a filter. She's only this cool when she's not in the midst of harboring stomach-fluttering crushes. When she does have a crush, she becomes, well, this.
Your feminine power has us actually dead, too. Oh, thanks, hon. So then...
Suffice it to say, Aisha is as dramatic as her sharp-winged eyeliner, and we love her for it. The show is rounded out with characters outside of Lady Parts like Noor, Amina's elegant and judgmental best friend.
The red is my lucky hijab, so I'm telling you, do not wear the red. Brings out your shame. Oh.
Asan, Aisha's younger brother and the object of Amina's affection, and Seema, Amina's mother, who couldn't be more different than Amina. When we first meet Amina and she's putting in all of this work just to be wed, her mother is the one trying to convince her to not get married.
I threw away my youth
on a good-for-nothing man-child. No offense.
None taken.
Is that what you want?
With We Are Lady Parts, Nida Mansour cleverly, hilariously, and tactfully deconstructs the trope of the meek Muslim woman. Each of these characters shows the dimensionality of womanhood, and in a media landscape that has consistently flattened these characters to tropes, it's kind of revolutionary to be able to see how Mansour is changing that. She's challenged these tropes so much that her depiction of Muslim women have been met with criticism. In season 1, we watch these characters grapple with how their identities are perceived by others in a few different ways. For Amina, who keeps her shrine to Don McLean a secret, music is a mode of self-expression that she doesn't feel prepared to share with the world. Whenever she tries to perform publicly, her anxiety turns to 11 and she gets so nauseous, she throws up. Or, as her lovely mother Seema puts it,
Hanabi disposition induces diarrhea and vomiting.
she initially only goes to the Lady Parts tryouts because her crush, Asan, passed the flyer to her. She makes a deal with the girls. If they get her a date with Asan, she'll help them try out for this music festival. All she has to do is get them to tryouts. She does not have to join the band. But in playing with them, she quickly finds that it brings her a kind of joy that she's never felt. Her confidence grows, not to the point that she feels comfortable playing to crowds, but to the point that marriage stops being the center of her universe. Even her once all-consuming crush on Asan takes a back seat. Still, she keeps her time with Lady Parts a secret from her best friend, Noor, who she knows would not approve. Saira struggles with how she's viewed in a different way, be it in her relationship or her way of being Muslim. Her casual relationship with Abdullah is too casual for him and he wants to be official, but they soon become strained with Saira's inability to even comprehend the idea of what a girlfriend should be and her discomfort with vulnerability. Aisha, brash and in-your-face Aisha, doesn't concern herself with trying to be polite or to soften her rough edges to make people more comfortable. She's confident, self-assured, and seemingly unaffected by how others perceive her.
Put on some fucking music, would ya?
We're your customers. We deserve to be treated with a bit of dignity and respect.
Like Bisma and Momtaz, we don't really see Aisha being all that concerned about how she's perceived until this happens. In an attempt to spread the word about the band, Momtaz comes in contact with an influencer/journalist who wants to do a piece about them. Zarina, the influencer in question, quickly enfolds herself into their lives, and at first all is well. She even starts a brief but loving relationship with Aisha. Their private conversations behind closed doors start to feel more interrogative as Zarina presses Aisha about her sexuality and coming out, and here we see the thing Aisha does care about. It's hard to be out, even more so as a Muslim. Zarina also questions Bisma on why she would want to conform to traditional roles like being a wife and a mother. Despite making her art and being in a punk band, she's still reduced to these titles. And even though by the end of season 1, the members have mostly moved on from this incident, the question of how people perceive Bisma stays with her well into season 2. When the article comes out, the band as a whole become worried about how they're being represented to the world.
I don't get what the big deal is.
The bad girls of Islam, really. Harammed and dangerous. Serena, you've got to change it.
It makes them look like they are laughing in the face of their own religion, like they're ashamed to be Muslim, and then the vicious attacks start. People calling them names, telling them they're going to hell, a riot of abuse that nearly breaks them apart. But louder than the naysayers are a new group of people that they've never really had before. Fans. And the fans love them. Love their flaws, love their anger, love their honesty, and they can't get enough. In one scene, when Momtaz first puts the band on social media and shows Saira the followers they've gained, she says,
"Look at them. They're us. Younger us's when we didn't even know peeps like us even existed."
It's this and each other that keeps them going in the end. By the last episode of season 1, Amina, who had no intention of joining the band full-time, ends up being honest with Noor. She's going to play with her band. Her band. Long before the interview came out, Amina did audition with the band for the festival, and Amina completely froze on stage, unable to play her solo. She was obviously ashamed and ready to quit the band, so she wouldn't hold them back anymore. But to her surprise, no one was mad at her. In fact, Saira was proud.
I can't play with you. You saw me. I can't perform.
You froze. You didn't puke. That's progress.
Amina realizes that the support this band has given her as an artist as a woman, as an individual, has been life-changing. They're bonded. They're her sisters, and she would be miserable if she ever let them go. In season 2, the band has found success, but the level of success they've been chasing has never been their definition of success, but the one they've been conditioned to think is the most important. After gaining a fan base, they go on tour around England to thousands of adoring fans. They even have admirers in the newcomer band Second Wife, whose name they all envy because it really is that great.
Oh my god. They're called Second Wife. Fuck, that's good.
Second Wife has the popularity because its lead singer, Taifa, is already a style and beauty influencer, so the band's cover of Lady Part's song, Bashir with a Good Beard, which is fucking great, goes viral, and Lady Parts are left to contemplate their place in the music scene. Selfishly, they wonder if this means there's no room for them, but it's logical given what we see often in the entertainment industry, the age-old idea that there can only be one of us. Second Wife, despite being perceived as a threat, are genuine admirers of Lady Parts and just want to be mentored by them. At the same time, Lady Parts is trying to make sure they record an album while they still have this amount of attention on them. If they wait too long, they could lose their relevance, and it'll be hell getting it back. But making an album takes money that they don't have because touring barely pays, especially as a DIY punk band. So Mumtaz has them try out a sponsorship, which Syra is vehemently against. Slowly but surely, Syra concedes that she'll be okay if they do a few paid thingies as long as it's not too, and I quote, capitalistic, you know? She's so cute. It's a real head trip, wanting your art to be seen and heard, but not wanting to have to play the capitalistic game. But in some cases, you can't make your art seen by all without playing the capitalistic game. Anyway, they do wedding gigs, which work fine. They try out the sponsorship and brand deals, which don't work fine at all. Despite Mumtaz's best efforts, it seems the band takes 2 steps forward and like 6 steps back. When she finds out the band could have an opportunity to grow under new, more professional management, she implores them to take the opportunity and gracefully bows out of the band, even though it shatters her heart to do so. At first, Lady Parts love it. They get to record their album with all the time they need and they get to be paid for it. But they miss Mumtaz, and soon the label starts interfering with their music in ways they didn't expect. When Syra meets her idol, a Muslim punk icon named Sister Squire, she is reminded that she has a real opportunity to use her platform for something monumental, that people before her couldn't get this far in the door, and soon she's convinced that she needs to use her voice for good, even to the detriment of herself. An interesting conversation ensues between the band members as Syra says they need to be making music that speaks against atrocities going on around the world, that they need to be vocally political. Bisma points out that they are political, just by existing in this space.
Syra, don't you see? We are political. Just by existing, just by taking up this space, we are political. And don't you think it's important that we succeed?
What they say, even if it is reduced to a funny Muslim song, is political. Like Voldemort under my headscarf could be a direct response to the burqa ban in France.
What could I be hiding? 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 Voldemort's alive. Voldemort's alive. Voldemort's alive. He's under my headscarf.
Syra writes a song, but quickly learns that even if she tried to use her platform to get it out there, the label had the power to silence her. To silence all of them. One of my favorite moments of season 2 comes with Aisha and a producer the band absolutely adores named Dirty Mahmoud. Aisha, who has been dating someone new, Laura, who gets her completely, is feeling new pressure to come out to her parents. Her friends, her band, and her brother, they all know she's gay, and they know about Laura, but it's something she's been unable to tell her parents. She practices trying to come out while in the break room at the recording studio and has a raw moment of vulnerability where she expresses the fear of what coming out would do to her relationship with her parents. She loves them, she loves being close to them, and she's not at all ready for the nature of their relationship to change. She's not ready for what it could mean, something that I recognize all too well. Dirty Mahmoud looks at her and asks her something that she hasn't really asked herself.
What do I do?
What do you want to do?
Honestly, I want to not do it.
Then don't do it.
Something so simple and yet so devastating.
What about all the little gay girls? Shouldn't I be an example for them all?
You should be an example for yourself. The little gay girls, they need someone that does what's right for them, when it's right for them. And don't forget, the little gay girls, they have you already.
When I tell you I cried a river, what a show. Are you kidding me?
It's an honor killing, it's an honor killing. It's an honor killing, it's an honor killing. I'm gonna kill my sister.
The moment my love for the show was cemented was upon hearing the very first song we ever hear Lady Parts play as a trio prior to meeting Amina. They practiced a song called Ain't No One Gonna Honor Kill My Sister But Me. It's angry, it's brash, and it is hysterical. The title, like many of the songs Lady Parts write and record, are humorous reflections of Muslimhood, including misperceptions about Muslims. In real life, they're written by the Manzoor siblings, which I just love.
Maybe instead of Voldemort under my headscarf, you could do I love to wear my headscarf.
Voldemort Under My Headscarf has got to be my favorite track from season 1. It's so fucking funny. Growing up and wearing hijab, I would get asked often what my hair looked like and what I was keeping under there, like it was some dark secret, some dangerous secret. This song captures that phenomenon in such a funny, delightful way. In the second season, we get songs like Villain Era and Glass Ceiling Feeling, which are just spectacular. Villain Era in particular was so endearing to me because it's a song Amina writes. In season 1, Amina's biggest concern is how people think of her. In season 2, she's learning to let go of that and do things on her terms. She's also saying no more often and setting boundaries, which, given that she's been made to feel small her whole life, feels like being the bad guy.
Is this about you being in your beast mode?
My villain era, correct.
Amina's definition of being in her villain era is just not bending over backwards for people. And as someone who had that same definition, I don't know, it's just really funny, okay? It's really funny. Villain Era is such a fun, infectious song with an addictive chorus. Definitely one of the best tracks to come out of season 2. Glass Ceiling Feeling is the song the band writes after signing to their label and feeling that their art and their identity is being trampled all over. It's more of an introspective song, a lot heavier in its subject matter, and its imagery suits the cold, empty feeling it leaves you with. It's a dialogue of self-doubt and artistic integrity, and it is so good. The music scenes are some of my favorite moments in the series. Every time the band plays, the look becomes more cinematic and isolated, dropping a spotlight on them, and it demonstrates to us how they may feel when they play. Powerful, sleek, cool, and in complete harmony. When Amina plays her first solo, for example, her hijab blows backward from a breeze, and we know that in this moment she feels electric and free. Oh my god, I love this show. Some of you know how obsessed I was with Nida Mansour's feature-length debut, Polite Society. It was released last Eid. What a great release day, right? And it became my entire personality for a few months. What Mansour created with We Are Lady Parts, she continued with Polite Society, creating a fun, fast-moving, heartfelt story. And what she learned from making Polite Society, she took with her to the second season of We Are Lady Parts. The music scenes aren't the only moments where the mood shifts and elements of almost magical realism come into play. Mansour uses metaphorical imagery in these scenes to get across the devastation of certain situations. For instance, in season 2, Bisma is clashing with her daughter Imani, who is quickly growing into her own independent person with plenty of teen angst to boot. In a moment where Bisma should be trying to see Imani and understand her, she instead takes a remote and pauses her, effectively shutting her out and leaving her home. In another scene, Syra is trying to record a song she's written that the label is strongly against. In the scene, she starts to sing her lyrics, but when she reaches one word, she is censored.
I won't mention the... It's like death and the maiden dancing with my corporation. I won't mention the...
It escalates to Syra being thrown across the room by an unseeable force, and I walked away from this thinking two things. A, what a powerful way to demonstrate artist censorship, and B, I want to see what Nida Mansour would do with a horror film, because it looks like it could be interesting. Something I really appreciate about We Are Lady Parts as a person who has a tendency to fall head over heels for shows that end up being prematurely cancelled is that both seasons end in such a way that feels like the story is complete. When I finished the first season, I wasn't sure if it would be renewed, but I took solace in the fact that the story felt complete. It ends with Amina choosing to perform with lady parts, telling Noor that this is something she wants to do and performing beautifully without having a panic attack. Season 1 is written in such a way that it feels more like a standalone film, and it's nice having a season that ends so completely. Manzoor continues this with the second season. Conflicts are resolved. Lady parts tried the mainstream thing with a big label, but understandably couldn't contend with all the censorship and changes enforced on their projects. They find a home in Momtaz's studio, made up of local artists who get to work on their craft, collaborate, and grow as a collective. In the end, they are still lady parts, and this is how they're supposed to be. Their definition of success does not have to be the traditional definition of success. She leaves no plot point left unresolved, no loose end untied. I don't ever want to say goodbye to these characters, but because of how each season has concluded thus far, if I did have to say goodbye, it wouldn't be painful and I wouldn't be left with 1,000,001 questions. Going back to the season 1 plotline where the band is interviewed by Zarina, when the article goes public, the band is met with vicious backlash and a bombardment of people calling them sinners, fake Muslims, telling them that they need to repent, etc. This mirrors an experience Manzoor had shortly after she was commissioned to film what would become the pilot episode for We Are Lady Parts. When the short was posted online, she got so much backlash from people who were absolutely enraged that she would depict Muslim women in such a way that she deleted her social media accounts. The experience had her down, but just like she later wrote for the members of Lady Parts, she came back from the experience even stronger and felt incensed to continue telling the story. People needed to get used to seeing flawed Muslim women and feel less comfortable calling Muslim women they see fake Muslims for not adhering to their idea of how they're supposed to present themselves. Most Muslim characters we see in film and TV, especially if they're Muslim women, are depicted as being very meek, very subservient, and of course, oppressed. There often isn't any grace left for these characters to be anything other than this one-dimensional shade of timidity. These tropes also often have a hijabi character who is oppressed and insecure for the bulk of her character arc, only finding her strength after taking off her hijab and falling in love with a white boy. Some Muslim women wear hijab, some don't, but regardless, there is something incredibly sinister about framing a Muslim character's liberation as something that only happens after she removes her headscarf or falls for a white boy. Degrassi Next Class is a very messy show, but I still give it points for how it explored this theme with Goldie. A lot of people in the Degrassi fandom seem to hate Goldie because she tends to be self-righteous, but that's kind of the point of her character, an important part of her flaw that is unpacked over the course of 2 seasons. One arc in particular sees Goldie befriending Reshma, a new transfer student. Reshma wears hijab sometimes and goes without it other times. She's also queer. Goldie struggles to contend with what feels like a contradiction of her faith. She looks at Reshma and decides to try not wearing her hijab, but realizes that doing so doesn't make her feel freer or more like herself. It makes her feel like she's compromising who she is and being inauthentic. That's her journey. Reshma's journey is different. The episode ends with Goldie accepting that there are different ways to be a Muslim woman and one way isn't necessarily right for everyone.
Every single day feels like a choice between the culture here and my faith. And if you break any rules, you feel like you're not Muslim anymore.
Messy show. Well thought out arc for Goldie. Manzoor takes the trope and completely shatters it. All the women in her show go against the grain, against the stereotype. Even Noor, Amina's friend who can be judgmental and close-minded, particularly in season 1, is not one to just follow. She's a leader in every sense of the word and has no problem standing up to people who have wronged her or standing up for those closest to her.
You've got some nerve being here. Leading girls on. What is that? Some sort of sport for you? And you are a sad, pathetic little man.
Yeah, that's exactly what my mum said. Sorry. Bye.
The show is both an homage to the pioneers who came before Manzoor and an amplification of the ones that exist right now, be it in punk or otherwise. Season 2 not only features a song called Malala Made Me Do It, but Malala actually shows up for a cameo. One of the most well-known and influential Muslim women in the world. Voice of Basiprat, a spectacular band based in Indonesia, are fans of the show, and star Anjana Vasan said she was honored by that Voice of Basiprat were the real thing. They're the real lady parts, changing the game completely. Their album Red Us is so good. Please check this album out, I really can't recommend it enough. Back to the plot point of identity being politicized. Even if We Are Lady Parts is a show that doesn't exist with a political agenda, as some people would say, it is inherently political because of the voices it chooses to highlight and showcase, just like Bisma said. Nida Manzoor dismantles any and all stereotypes one might have about Muslim women just by writing them as human.
The reason why I made the show We Are Lady Parts was to explore the nuances between different Muslim women, to explore, what it means to be gay and Muslim, what it means to be a black woman and Muslim, and just see those nuances play out, because I think that's kind of what the show's about, is just to say there's no one way to be a Muslim person. It contains multitudes.
They're angry, they're sad, they're flawed, they curse, they make mistakes, and if they were to compare themselves to the high standard of the so-called ideal Muslimah, they probably would fall short. They are not images of perfection. Please watch the show. It's profound in so many ways. So tender, so funny, and just exciting. I did my best not to go super in-depth with some of the plot points because I wanted to encourage people to actually seek it out and watch the seasons for themselves. So please do that. It's on Peacock. I know a lot of people don't have Peacock, but there's some good shows on there, okay? Nida Mansour, I don't think you're watching this, but on the off chance that you are, which would be scary, thank you for making this. I think you're just brilliant.
What, bitch?
I did, bitch.
Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected by its team of curators. Discover the best of cinema at your fingertips, streaming anytime, anywhere. In one of my earliest collaborations with Mubi, I highlighted the work of director Corriera, who is easily one of my favorite directors working today. His film Monster topped off my list of absolutely fantastic films from 2023, and it is now streaming on Mubi in the United States. You can never go wrong with Corriera, and I can't recommend Monster or any of his work enough. So if you want to check it out, be sure to use my promo code to try Mubi free for 30 days and discover loads of great filmmakers. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Yarazade. That is mubi.com/Yarazade for a whole month of great cinema for free.